What's going on, guys? It's Frito here. Today, we're going to discuss all of Season 18's top meta strategies for all three roles, taking into account a combination of factors where there was a major perk overhaul as well as a brand new support. We're going to talk a lot about supports today. This is a very Overwatch skill meta as opposed to, let's say, like a sniper meta or a singular role being OP. All the roles are strong. I do think the tank role is the strongest, but maybe it should be in 5v5. But the plays that are making the biggest impact right now is the macro team comp mismatches, because the game is more complicated today than it has been since Overwatch 1. And because that complexity comes through the perk system, there is a lot of variation on what you can pick and why, but you better know the matchups. Starting off with what I think is the top meta tank, Mauga. He hardly gets played by the community. I think he's vastly misunderstood. And what you're going to see me do in this opening game when we're down a round, worked up to my major perk, which auto-ignites targets that I overrun onto, I'm looking to off-angle pincer engage. As opposed to simply walking at the front line, there's lots of tanks now that can play off on their own island, which makes sense, especially when you're playing with a Wu Yang who's going to play that way anyway. He sits far back, skates in and out, and comes in for burst heal once in a while, but isn't by any means a death ball style hero. He's the opposite of that. So, taking the fight to either the off angle or the enemy's backline is going to bypass the enemy's tank. And a big number of tanks in the game are frontal blocking tanks. Hazard, Ramatra, Reinhardt's Shield, Diva's Matrix, it blocks the thing in front of them. So the characters that fight from the side are automatically able to bypass it. Early in Overwatch 2's life, there was only a few tanks that could play this way. Doomfist had his own solitaire playstyle, where he could play super aggressive, build up to his punch, and use that to carry. That's kind of the template for the perks for the tanks in Season 18. I've got an entirely separate tank video dedicated to this subject, so I won't go much farther on it today. Mauga, I feel, is the top one because he has Overrun, which makes him unstoppable, immune to the Wu Yang ult, lets him cross great horizontal distance, which either keeps up with his own Wu Yang or can actually go track down theirs. And he's got a major perk that he can carry the game with, which essentially is just a DPS increase, turning his time to kill on squishies, especially, from kind of wonky and maybe inconsistent to very consistent and fast. Next, let's start to talk about the supports in the metagame. Here I'm playing Kiriko, who I think is the best meta pick to be alongside Wu Yang and a hard engage tank. So you've got Mauga, you've got Wrecking Ball, you've got Doomfist. These tanks aren't going to stand in front of you, receiving a ton of resources. Instead, they're playing the perimeter, they're playing health packs, they're going in super deep, and you either have to keep up with them or fend for yourself. Both Kiriko and Wu Yang have the mobility abilities to do that. High damage, so they're just going to play their own angles half the time and maybe just get their own kills, and are both really good in what I'm deeming a poke control style meta. I call it that because it's not a sniper meta, because despite the sniper heroes getting some nuts perks, I don't think they're very good to play, mainly because the things that run at you really fast are also good. So if you try to play snipers, well, you're gonna get run down. Instead, some of the best heroes are the ones that have poke and control options, as in repositioning tools, immortalities, boop, snares, options. When you play to control the game, you're slowing it down, using a lot of primary fire and reacting to what the enemy wants to do, as opposed to a brawl meta, which probably would be like, get your team in close as fast as you can and target together, or a dive meta, where everyone's using mobility to outposition something and dive on it. This also is partially because of the maps that are in the pool. They've been adding more and more and more maps. So just by the map variety alone, that's kind of playing into this a bit. And because we have hero bans, even when you go to the pure sniper maps, they're probably getting banned anyway, meaning the things that functionally get played are in this archetype. Now, some heroes that I don't think are very good. Juno. With the Juno-Brig combination from a few metas ago, that was like an immortal backline. They could cover each other, reposition, heal forever. But with Season 18 perks, there's a lot of hard engage or aggressive style picks that can mollywop you and just like run you down, you know? Like back then in that meta, I don't think Mauga had a perk to auto-ignite. I don't think perks were in the meta at the time. So due to that like power creep of time to kill in a lot of the individual characters, there are characters that are going to make solo plays. but it requires a lot of game sense to know which things you can go at. You just don't outright do it against everything, right? Equally, I haven't seen so many useful Lucios, but if you're not going to play Wu Yang, then Lucio Kiri's still fine. He's like a budget Wu Yang, because ultimately, I don't think you need to speed your team at all right now. Maybe in full team play, like in tournaments and stuff, they might. But I truly believe that in ranked, speed is like the most useless resource for your teammates because they've all got their own tools to survive anyway. Usually in the perk system, more sustain, more mobility, etc. Now, I will say, if you commit to a full comp and you play Lucio Batiste or Moira or everybody on your team is going balls to the wall to hard W, I can imagine that winning. It's just kind of hard to coordinate with randoms to play that way when there's so many things that blow you up. Cassidy gets multi-nade, Bastion gets 3 nades, Junkrat's got crazy perks. Risking your life that hard as most characters feels scary, and players don't want to do that. But there's one player on each team that could do that. It's the tank hero, and mostly because enemy supports don't think they have to pick meta characters. It's a lot of the DPS trying hard, counter-picking the enemy, or the tank player counter swapping into a circle, but I can't stress enough that having bad, exploitable, or not really any interaction giving supports makes the matchups very, very difficult for you. On this Ilios, there's almost nothing this Rein can do to stop a Wrecking Ball from fighting his Mercy Wu Yang. Side note, Wrecking Ball's primary fire cannons are a bit underrated, good at medium range. But with so much health, whether I even hit a pile driver or not, I can stand and deliver and focus down a squishy trying to fly in the air rather easily. So it's really important when you're building team comps right now to know who needs peel and if you have the right counter picks to peel for that target. So in this situation, a Brig would go a long way. The Rein maybe could swap to Diva to be more responsive. Still have that defensive playstyle, but specifically play front to back, which means if the ball's in your backline, everybody's got to shoot it. If you have front to back characters, which Wu Yang is, by the way. There's certain supports that have a flanky style that could go deep on the enemy team, but Wu Yang's not going to get there and live and get out. That's not how he works. He plays in your backline always. So no matter what, he's stuck playing front to back, which means whatever's in the front, he has to shoot. Usually that's the tank, but whatever's the most aggressive is the thing that counts as being in the front, whether that's a flanker DPS, the all-in hard engage DPS, or the aggressive tank. Now, the support role has a lot of options to either counter a lot of the tanks or win a duel on their own right. And the supports that are just a little too supporty, it looks a little hard for them to really contribute in a high complexity meta. Heal botting to victory works okay when you have 2 tanks fighting in the front. But as we've already shown, there's a lot of that not going on, right? Too much chaos. But a way you can adapt this for yourself as a tank player is pick up some frontline brawling type picks. And if you're not the one going aggressive yourself, make sure that you've got the positive interactions to hold the front line down. Particularly because so many of the Giga tanks are going to be hard pressing W. Orisa is one of the few that's got lots of neutral, I'm not going to even say positive, but just neutral matchups against a lot of them, where she can stand in front of their supports like your supports want you to do and manage the front line and play that front to back style. You'll start to make her look crazy when you refuse to bite off more than you can chew. Against any individual squishy, you've got an easy time, but otherwise managing the aggro with your cooldowns and refuse to face when you don't have them is going to add a lot of tanking to your team, especially since Roadhog got nerfed. While I have made some of the adaptations to my Hog gameplay from studying 6, I do think Orisa just has more buttons to push and a similar counter aggression style of play. It doesn't look so flashy on the perk sheet, but being able to heal during the cast of her ultimate gives it another utility item, not just the crowd control, not just the slam follow-up herself, but she'll get the extra fortify as well as some self-heal. A high amount as well, 100 per second, is kind of nutty while you have fortify on. So playing patient to bait the aggro in and peel back as far as you need to secure against those crazy off-angle plays from the enemy going all in on your backline. That's what Orisa wants to do. Don't get stuck fighting the front line or pushing in or splitting apart. Hold the hand of your support. Once you create the man advantage, then things get easy. Now I want to talk about the damage category, and due to the power of tanks being giga monsters again, particularly when they level up, when it comes to how to go about the damage roll, I tend to think, can I farm their tank? or does the tank farm Mei? Because that changes everything. Depending on the map you're on and what tank they go is going to radically change how you get to play. While a lot of the power in the Season 18 perks era, there is a lot of sustain, there's a lot of buttons, a lot of escapes, a lot of movement. Overall, I'd say there's more offense than defense. There's like a lot of easy offense even, which is partially why being too aggressive is so hard right now, because you're going to get exploded by a number of things. So there's two roles of characters that I think perform particularly well right now, and they're both low economy DPS. The perks on both the snipers are kinda nutty. Now, I did say the hard to gauge characters love to feast on them. However, you can outplay that due to the range advantage, especially on a good map for you. Widow and Hanzo are definitely coming back, fighting with a vengeance up against their popular hero bans on their competitive maps. But particularly Hanzo, who got buffs to his perks in his reliability, spamming the main line is kind of what he's incentivized to do. So that means there's going to be a lot of tanks that he's going to be able to work down while also playing the sniper pickoff battle. Another character that plays the same position just as good as ever is Sojourn. While she has lower health points, she got different buffs in the rest of her kits, and so for this particular meta, Sojourn is still insane because you're just not going to play out in front. You don't want to get targeted and you'll have to run away, do less of the hard power sliding in gameplay. But remember, specifically because Wu Yang is a front-to-back character, if you don't have a front-to-back DPS, you're not going to clear the tank. Wu Yang's damage is like a far rocket, but kind of inconsistent to hit. That's the issue with it. So there's certain tanks where when he gets in the groove, he can really whittle them down, but other times he might never hit them, depending on what kind of tank they are, the positions they're playing, etc. That's important because other support characters can consistently hit anything or have cooldowns that nuke tanks. And so playing with a Wu Yang, you're going to feel that be really inconsistent on what to do. So that either means one or two things. You can play safer and poke, especially when you start to stretch his limited healing resource, which I think is important. Alternatively, you can play flankers, who have gotten some of the most insane perks in the damage category. It seems like a perks-dominated metagame is going to advantage the flex DPS, because ultimately, a lot of the skill shot DPS, they get some quality of life stuff, but a lot of the flex DPS or flanker picks, they get perks that like take over the game. Not as strong as the tanks, but it's the next best thing when it comes to offense, at least. In this match, I'm playing Sombra, but then I switch to Reaper just to play the narrow choke, and then go to Tracer at the end to play their side. You can just see how using any part of the map for any flanker, doable, viable, each having their own plays to make. It's hard for me to rate any one above the other necessarily. I think Genji is the highest skill expressive one because he's got the perks that are a little bit over the top. I felt like Pharah's in the previous iteration were that, but hers got nerfed a bit. But I do think Genji's a little harder to play than the shotgun style Reaper or even Sombra, and Tracer has an even higher skill ceiling. And the reason why you can imagine this working is because you've got the opportunity to respond to a really aggressive tank out of position, or to make use on the space on the enemy squishies. There was always an old debate between League of Legends and Dota and other MOBA games in general and their balance philosophy. Perks already kind of did this a bit, but Season 18 definitely gave everybody sledgehammers or big crazy axes. Not only was Overwatch an incredibly intricate and decently well-balanced game prior to perks being released, as each hero you can imagine have their own position where they excel. With the perks meta, they've all got their own like nuke to play in their specific kind of way. That means when a hero's out of position, they look way, way worse up against the hero that is in position. Whereas when it was a bit more of just a shooter game, I mean, like this is just a few years ago. When Overwatch 2 first released, it was like a pure shooter. Now the MOBA aspects are so much more enhanced. If they bring their superpower to the position they're good in a position you're bad in, you just blow up. That's how it works. If Tracer gets on you in the back, well, now she gets more ammo on her melee hits to shoot you longer. And if that's not enough, she recalls, gets extra ammo and overhealth. It's like you are going down if she gets on you. And I feel the same way about Reaper as well when he's in the cut. I think when you're playing the DPS position, really just focusing on how to really leverage some matchup somewhere. The two routes are either the mainline DPS or somehow winning the flanker duel. That's everything for today's meta breakdown. We'll see if they do much more balanced tuning. I don't necessarily think the game needs it because the Season 18 perks meta shifts were so strong. We're still learning how to play these different matchups and new powers, frankly. So I don't think they've even got good data to make great balancing at the moment, and I'm kind of okay with that. This allows Overwatch to play to the fun factor elements of Marvel Rivals without going off the rails. It's not necessarily a well-tuned, balanced game, but it's a sensible one. And if the heroes aren't perfectly balanced, well, they can make major tuning to the perks in the next however many seasons, right? It's fun as hell. That's all I know. I certainly think I'm going to grow in mastery over it with more playtime, but by then, they'll probably be switching it up all over again, which I think is kind of the point. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to click subscribe and the bell icon to actually get notified when my videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito. I'll see you guys next time.